Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching the stars through the main screen. The ship moved slowly through empty space, far from Earth and any other human world. They had been out here for 3 months, looking for new planets and checking for signs of alien life. "Captain, I'm getting something strange on the sensors," said Dr. Lisa Carter from her station. She was the ship's science officer, a smart woman who had studied alien life for years, even though they had never found any real aliens before. "What? Kind of strange?" Morrison asked. He walked over to look at her screen. The numbers and lines meant nothing to him, but he could see that something was making Lisa worried. "3 very large objects, sir. They're moving toward us fast. Much faster than any human ship can go." Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "Sir, these things are huge. Each one is 10 times bigger than our ship. Lieutenant Commander." Ryan Brooks looked up from his weapons station. "Captain, should I power up our defenses?" Morrison thought for a moment. "Not yet. Let's see what they want first." "Lisa, can you tell where they came from?" "No, sir. They just appeared out of nowhere, like they were invisible, and then suddenly they weren't." Lisa looked scared, but she kept working. "Captain, I think they're ships, and I think there are people inside them." The bridge became very quiet. Everyone knew this moment might come someday. Humans had been flying between the stars for 50 years, but they had never met anyone else out here. Now it looked like that was about to change. "Red alert," Morrison said calmly. "Amy, try to contact them. Let them know we're here and that. We want to talk." Communications Officer Amy Rodriguez started working on her equipment. "Yes, sir. Sending a standard greeting message on all frequencies." The main screen suddenly changed. Instead of stars, it now showed the inside of another ship. The person looking back at them was not human. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. He wore what looked like a military uniform, covered in medals and symbols. "I am Admiral Zex High of the Catherian Galactic Empire," the alien sighed. His voice was cold and proud. "You will surrender your ship immediately. Your species will bow down to the Empire or be destroyed. These are your only choices." Morrison looked at the alien for a long moment. He had expected first contact to be different from this, maybe peaceful, maybe friendly. But this alien was talking like Earth movies about evil space empires. "I'm Captain Morrison of the human ship Liberty," he said. "We're explorers from Earth. We didn't come here to fight anyone. We just want to learn about the galaxy." Admiral Zex High made a sound that might have been laughing. "Humans. Another weak species that thinks it can travel the stars. You are like children playing with toys you don't understand. The Catherian Empire has ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. We have destroyed hundreds of species who thought they were strong, enough to resist us." On the screen behind the Admiral, Morrison could see other aliens working at control stations. They all looked confident, like they had done this many times before. Their ship was huge and covered with weapons that glowed with dangerous energy. "You have 1 minute to surrender," Admiral Zex High continued. "Lower your shields, turn off your weapons, and prepare to be boarded. If you resist, we will destroy your ship and everyone on it. Then we will find your home world and destroy that too." Morrison looked around his bridge. Lisa was still working at her science station, but now she was scanning the alien ships instead of just watching them. Ryan had his hands on the weapon, controls waiting for orders. Amy was recording everything that was happening. "Admiral," Morrison said slowly, "I think you should know something. We humans have a saying, don't start a fight you can't finish. Right now, you're the one starting a fight." The alien admiral's eyes became angry. "You dare to threaten the Catherian Empire? Your tiny ship against 3 of our battleships? You are either very brave or very stupid. Morrison stood up from his captain's chair. Maybe both. But here's the thing, Admiral. We didn't come out here unprepared. We've been getting ready for this day for a long time. So I'm going to give you the same choice you gave me. You have 30 seconds to turn your ships around and leave this system. This is your only warning. The bridge crew of the Liberty stayed. Calm, just like they had been trained. Amy kept the communication channel open, making sure the aliens could see that the humans were not afraid. Lisa continued her scans, learning everything she could about the alien ships. Ryan checked his weapons, making sure everything was ready. Admiral Zex-High stared at Morrison like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. In 3,000 years, no species has ever given us an ultimatum. You have signed your death warrant, human. Maybe, Morrison said, but you should ask yourself something first, Admiral. In 3,000 years, have you ever met a species that warned you to run instead of begging for mercy? The alien admiral's confident expression began to change. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Time's up, Morrison said quietly. Dr. Lisa Carter tried one more time to make peace. She opened a new communication channel to the alien ships and spoke in her calmest voice. Admiral Zex-High, please listen to me. We humans are new to space travel. We only left our home planet 50 years ago. We don't want to fight anyone. We just want to explore and learn about the galaxy. Maybe we can be friends instead of enemies. The alien admiral looked at her like she was a child who didn't understand how the world worked. Friends? The Catherian Empire does not have friends. We have subjects, and we have enemies. Species that submit to us live. Species that resist us die. It has always been this way. Lisa looked at Captain Morrison, hoping he would let her keep trying to talk. But she could see in his eyes that talking time was over. Still, she had to try. Admiral, you said you've been ruling the galaxy for 3,000 years, but the galaxy is huge. There must be room for everyone. Humans don't want to take anything from your empire. We just want to exist. Existence is a privilege that we grant, Admiral Zex-High said. Your species has not earned this privilege. You will surrender now or face the consequences. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks was running checks on the alien ships. His computers were analyzing everything they could see about the Catherian vessels. The results were interesting, but not surprising. Captain, Ryan said quietly, these ships are big and powerful, but they're old. Really old. The technology looks like it hasn't changed in hundreds of years. And look at how they're positioned. Morrison glanced at Ryan's screen. The 3 alien ships were arranged in a triangle around the Liberty, with all their weapons pointed at the human vessel. It looked impressive, but Ryan was right. It was the formation of people who had never faced a real challenge. They're used to fighting scared enemies, Morrison said. Enemies who try to run away or hide. Yes, sir. They've probably never fought anyone who fought back with modern weapons. And Captain, there's something else. Their ships are so big that they can't move very fast. If we needed to, we could fly circles around them. Chief Engineer Pete Sullivan's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. Captain, I'm ready to implement Protocol 7 whenever you give the word. Morrison nodded. Protocol 7 was something they had practiced many times, but never used in a real battle. It would change their ship from a peaceful explorer into something very different. Something that might surprise the Catherians. Not yet, Pete. Let's give them one more chance to be smart about this. Admiral Zex-High was getting impatient. Enough talking. Humans, you have wasted our time with your foolish words. We will now demonstrate why the Catherian Empire has ruled the galaxy for so long. The alien ships began to glow brighter as they charged their weapons. Energy readings on the Liberty sensors showed that the Catherians were preparing to fire enough power to destroy a small moon. Morrison opened the communication channel one last time. "Admiral, you're making a terrible mistake. We didn't come out here looking for a fight, but we're prepared for one. Your ships are impressive, but you have no idea what you're dealing with." The captain's voice was not angry or scared. It was calm and certain, like someone who had seen things that would give other people nightmares. "This is your last chance. Leave now, and we'll pretend this never happened. Stay, and you'll learn why humanity survived long enough to reach the stars." Navigation Officer Kate Phillips began running pre-flight checks on the ship's movement systems. Her fingers danced over the controls, preparing for maneuvers that would be impossible for most ships. The Liberty looked like a simple exploration vessel, but it could move like a fighter when it needed to. "What is Protocol 7? Admiral Zexhai asked. Somehow, he had heard Pete Sullivan's earlier message. Morrison smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "It's what we do when talking doesn't work. It's what we do when someone threatens to destroy our home. It's what we do when peaceful people have to stop being peaceful." The alien admiral studied Morrison's face. For 3,000 years, the Catherians had conquered species after species. They had seen fear, anger, desperation, and rage. But they had never seen what they were seeing now in the human captain's eyes. They had never seen quiet, cold certainty. "You are bluffing," Admiral Zexhai said, but his voice didn't sound as confident as before. "One small ship cannot defeat 3 battleships. It is impossible." "You're probably right," Morrison agreed. "Under normal circumstances, you would destroy us easily. But these aren't normal circumstances, Admiral. You see, we know about you. We've known about the Catherian Empire for years. We know about the species you've conquered and the ones you've destroyed. We know about your weapons and your tactics and your history." The alien admiral's eyes widened. "How could you know these things? You said your species just reached the stars. We did. And when we got out here, we found evidence. Lots of evidence. Dead worlds, wrecked ships, recordings left by the species you destroyed. We learned from their mistakes, Admiral. We learned what happens to peaceful species who aren't ready for people like you." Amy Rodriguez was still recording everything. She wanted to make sure that if something happened to the Liberty, Earth would know exactly what the Catherians had said and done. But she also wanted the aliens to see that the humans were not panicking or running around in fear. "So we got ready," Morrison continued. "Every human ship that leaves Earth is ready for this day. Every human crew trains for this moment. We hoped we would never meet you, but we prepared for it anyway." "Impossible," Admiral Zexhai said. "No species has ever been ready for us." "No species has ever been us," Morrison replied. "Last warning, Admiral. Leave now or learn what happens when you threaten humanity." The alien admiral's face became hard and angry. "You will pay for your arrogance. All humans will pay." "Attack!" The 3 Catherian ships fired at once. The space around the USS Liberty lit up like a small sun. 3 massive alien battleships fired their weapons at the same time, sending enough energy toward the human ship to turn a planet into dust. The beams of light and streams of plasma looked like the anger of gods made real. Admiral Zexhai watched his weapons strike the tiny human vessel. For a moment, the Liberty disappeared completely inside a ball of fire and energy. The alien admiral smiled. Another species had learned the price of defying the Catherian Empire. Soon his ships would find the human homeworld and teach the rest of them the same lesson. But as the fire and light faded away, Admiral Zexhai's smile disappeared. The USS Liberty was still there, floating in space like nothing had happened. There was no damage to the ship, no burns on the hull, no pieces floating away. The human vessel looked exactly the same as it had before the attack. Impossible, Admiral Zexhai whispered. Nothing can survive that much firepower. Captain Morrison's voice came over the communication channel, calm and steady. We tried to warn you. What Admiral Zexhai didn't know was that the USS Liberty was not what it appeared to be. It looked like a simple exploration ship, the kind that peaceful species might send out to study stars and planets. But looks can be very deceiving. 50 years ago, when humans first learned how to travel between stars, they found something that changed everything. Deep space monitoring stations around Earth detected signals from far away. Old signals. Ancient signals. The recordings of a war that had destroyed most intelligent life in the galaxy thousands of awe. Years before, the human government studied these signals for years. They learned about weapons that could crack planets in half. They learned about shields that could stop the light of stars. They learned about battles between space fleets so large that they blocked out entire solar systems. And they learned that this ancient war had killed almost everyone who had been fighting it. The few species that survived, like the Cytherians, had built their empires on the ruins of the old civilizations. They used technology they found in the wreckage, but they never really understood it. They became strong by being the biggest fish in a pond where all the real predators were already dead, but humans understood. They studied the ancient technology and learned how to build it themselves. They made it better. They made it smaller. They made it stronger. And most importantly, they learned from the mistakes that had destroyed the old civilizations. Every human ship that left Earth looked peaceful on the outside. But inside, they carried weapons and defenses based on technology that had once lit up the galaxy with war. The USS Liberty was not an exploration vessel. It was one of humanity's most advanced warships. Disguised to look harmless, Dr. Lisa Carter was not just a scientist. She was a combat specialist, trained to find the weaknesses of alien species and their technology. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks was not just a weapons officer. He was a veteran of the brutal wars that had united Earth under one government. Even Navigation Officer Kate Phillips was more than she seemed. She could fly the Liberty through space battles that would destroy other ships. All systems online. Chief Engineer Pete Sullivan reported from the engine room. Protocol 7 is now active. The USS Liberty began to change. Panels on the hull slid open to reveal weapon systems that had been hidden inside. The ship's engines glowed brighter as the reactor switched from simple fusion to controlled antimatter reactions. Energy readings from the human vessel suddenly jumped to levels. That made the Cytherian sensors scream warnings. "What is that ship?" One of Admiral Zexhai's officers asked in fear. The human vessel moved in ways that should have been impossible. It dodged between the alien ships like a dancer, avoiding their weapons' fire with movements too fast and precise for such a large ship. The Liberty twisted and turned through space as if gravity meant nothing to it. "They've mastered gravitational manipulation," Admiral Zexhai said in shock. "That technology has been lost for thousands of years." Captain Morrison's voice filled the communication channel again. "Admiral, you should have listened to us. We told you to run. We gave you every chance to avoid this. But you wouldn't listen. You thought we were weak because we tried to be peaceful. The Liberty fired a single shot, not at the alien ships, but past them. The projectile moved faster than Cytherian sensors could track it. 1 kilometer behind the alien fleet, it exploded, with the force of a small star. The light was so bright that automatic filters on all the ships had to activate to protect their crews from being blinded. The explosion lasted only a few seconds, but it left a glowing cloud of superheated gas that would be visible for hours. The message was clear. If humans wanted to destroy the Cytherian ships, they could do it easily. That was us being polite, Morrison announced. We could have put that shot through the middle of your flagship, Admiral. We chose not to. Do you understand what that means? Admiral Zexhai understood perfectly. The humans had weapons that could destroy his ships instantly, but they were choosing not to use them. They were still trying to avoid a real fight, even after the Catherians had attacked them. You're offering us mercy, the Admiral said slowly. We're offering you a chance to learn, Morrison replied. Your empire has spent 3,000 years bullying species that couldn't fight back. You've forgotten what it's like to face someone who can actually hurt you. We haven't forgotten. We've spent 50 years preparing for exactly this situation. The human ship moved closer to the Catherian flagship. Its weapons were now visible, and they were unlike anything in the Empire's databases. Some looked like energy cannons that could punch through any known armor. Others looked like missile launchers that could probably destroy entire fleets. And some looked like things that the Catherians couldn't even identify. We found records of your empire in the ruins of dead civilizations, Morrison continued. We know how you operate. You find a new species, demand that they surrender, and then destroy them if they resist. It's worked for you because everyone you've met has been weaker than you. Admiral Zexhai was beginning to understand how badly. He had miscalculated, but you're not weaker than us. No, Admiral, we're not. We're the children of a species that survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and nuclear weapons. We're the inheritors of technology that once set the galaxy on fire. And we're the people who learned from everyone else's mistakes. The Liberties. Main weapon began to charge. Energy readings climbed to levels that the Catherian computers said were impossible. The weapon was pointing directly at Admiral Zexhai's flagship. You have 10 seconds to retreat, Morrison said. After that, we stop being polite. Admiral Zexhai faced the hardest decision of his long military career. 3,000 years of Catherian history told him that retreat was impossible. The Empire had never backed down from any enemy, no matter how strong they seemed. To retreat now would mean admitting that someone in the galaxy was stronger than the Catherians. But the human ship floating in front of him was like nothing he had ever seen. Its weapons were charging with power levels that his computers said were impossible. The technology it had already shown was hundreds of years ahead of anything the Empire possessed. Every logical part of his mind told him to leave while he still could. Pride won over logic. All ships, attack with everything you have, Admiral Zexhai ordered. Show these humans why the galaxy fears us. The 3 Catherian battleships moved into a tight formation and opened fire with every weapon they had. Plasma cannons, energy beams, particle accelerators, and nuclear missiles, all fired at once. The amount of firepower directed at the USS Liberty was enough to destroy an entire fleet of normal ships. What happened next would be remembered throughout the galaxy as the 10-minute war, though it actually lasted only 7 minutes and 34 seconds. The USS Liberty didn't try to dodge the incoming fire. Instead, it did something that made Admiral Zexhai's eyes go wide with shock. The human ship activated a defensive system that caught the Catherian weapons and redirected them. Plasma beams bent around the Liberty like water flowing around a rock. Missiles changed course in mid-flight and flew past the ship without exploding. Gravitational field manipulation on a tactical level, Admiral Zexhai whispered. They're bending space itself. But the Liberty didn't just defend itself. It began to fight back, and when it did, the Catherians learned the difference between ruling over ruins and facing someone who understood the technology that had created those ruins. The human ship moved through space like it was dancing. Navigation. Officer Kate Phillips flew the Liberty in patterns that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics. The ship spun, twisted, and accelerated in ways that should have turned the crew inside into paste, but somehow didn't. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks controlled the Liberty's weapons with surgical precision. He didn't try to destroy the Catherian ships quickly. Instead, he targeted specific systems on each vessel. A beam of energy would slice through a weapon mount, disabling it without causing a massive explosion. A missile would impact exactly where it needed to punch through shields without killing the crew behind them. "Why aren't they trying to kill us?" asked one of Admiral HFY's officers. The admiral watched his ships being carefully dismantled and realized the horrible truth. "Because they don't need to. They're showing us that they could destroy us anytime they want, but they're choosing not to." The Catherian flagship shook as another precise hit disabled its main engines. The Liberty had somehow fired a weapon that passed through the ship's shields like they weren't even there. The hull wasn't even scratched, but the engine room was. Completely dead. Communications officer Amy Rodriguez maintained contact with the Catherian fleet throughout the battle. Her voice remained calm and professional as she offered surrender terms to ships that were being torn apart around her. "Catherian vessel, this is the USS Liberty. You can surrender at any time. We will guarantee the safety of your crews and provide medical assistance to anyone who needs it." This confused the alien crews more than the battle itself. They had spent centuries conquering other species, and none of their victims had ever offered medical help during a fight. The humans were defeating them completely, but they were still trying to minimize casualties. Dr. Lisa Carter provided constant analysis of Catherian weaknesses from her science station, but her recommendations were always about how to disable enemy systems, not how to destroy them. Every suggestion was designed to end the fight without unnecessary killing. "Their armor is strongest on the front and sides," she reported. "But if we hit the rear section with a low-power pulse, we can overload their shield generators without causing hull breaches." Chief Engineer Pete Sullivan monitored the Liberty's performance from the engine room. The ship was using technology that pushed the limits of known science, but everything was working perfectly. Years of preparation and training were paying off. "Captain, all systems are running smoothly. We can keep this up for hours if we need to." But they didn't need hours. The battle was already over, even though the Catherians hadn't realized it yet. 2 of their 3 ships were dead in space, floating helplessly while their crews tried to restart systems that would never work again. The 3rd ship was still fighting, but only because the humans were letting it. Captain Morrison made a decision that would change galactic history. "Amy, open a channel to all Catherian ships." "Channel open, sir." Morrison's voice carried across space to reach every alien crew member in the small fleet. "This is Captain Morrison. We're going to end this now. Watch carefully, because we want you to remember what you see here today." The Liberty's main weapon fired once. It was not the massive energy beam that the aliens expected. Instead, it was something much more sophisticated. A pulse of energy that passed through the remaining Catherian ship's shields, armor, and hull without causing any visible damage. For 3 seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then every light on the Catherian flagship went out. Every computer screen went dark. Every system shut down at exactly the same moment. The massive battleship that had been fighting desperately for its life suddenly became a dead piece of metal. Floating in space, the weapon had not destroyed anything. It had simply convinced every electronic system on the ship to stop working. The crew was alive and unharmed, but their vessel was completely helpless. How? Admiral HFY asked into his emergency communicator. Morrison answered from the Liberty. "We told you, Admiral. We've been preparing for this day for 50 years. We studied the technology that destroyed the ancient civilizations. We learned from their mistakes, and we built something better." The USS Liberty moved alongside the powerless Catherian flagship. To the aliens watching, It looked like a predator approaching helpless prey. But instead of finishing them off, the human ship simply waited. "The battle is over," Morrison announced. "You fought bravely, Admiral, but you were fighting a war that ended before your empire was even born. We're the children of that war. You're just the inheritors of what was left behind." Admiral Zex-High looked around his dark, silent bridge and realized that everything he thought he knew about the galaxy was wrong. Admiral Zex-High sat in his command chair, surrounded by darkness and silence. His flagship, which had been the pride of the Catherian fleet just minutes ago, was now a dead hulk floating in space. Emergency lights flickered weakly, powered by backup batteries that would not last long. "Admiral," came Captain Morrison's voice over the emergency communicator, "I request permission to come aboard your ship. We need to talk." In 3,000 years of Catherian military history, no enemy had ever asked permission to board a defeated vessel. They usually just took what they wanted and killed anyone who got in their way. But these humans were different. Even after winning a complete victory, they were still being polite. "Permission granted," Admiral Zex-High said. He didn't really have a choice. 20 minutes later, Captain Morrison walked onto the bridge of the Catherian flagship. He was not what Admiral Zex-High had expected. The human was tall, but not imposing. He wore a simple uniform with no fancy medals or decorations. He looked like someone who might teach at a school, not someone who commanded weapons that could destroy planets. Morrison carried with him a small crystal device. He placed it on the Admiral's command table and activated it. The crystal began to glow, and suddenly the dark bridge was filled with images and sounds that made Admiral Zex-High's blood run cold. "This is what we found when we first reached deep space," Morrison explained. "Records of the war that nearly destroyed all intelligent life in the galaxy. It happened about 4,000 years ago. The images showed battles between fleets, so massive that they blocked out entire star systems. Ships the size of moons fought with weapons that could crack planets in half. The fighting went on for centuries, with both sides building bigger and more terrible weapons. Two great alliances of species fought this war," Morrison continued. "We call them the Ancients and the Predecessors. They had technology that made your empire look like children playing with toys. They could move stars, create black holes, and build ships that existed in multiple dimensions at once." Admiral Zex-High watched in horror as the images showed the final battles of the ancient war. Entire solar systems were destroyed. Planets were turned into dust. Stars were extinguished. The galaxy burned with fire that could be seen from other galaxies. "In the end, they destroyed each other," Morrison said quietly. "Both sides used weapons so terrible that they killed themselves along with their enemies. The few survivors fled to the edges of the galaxy and tried to forget what they had done." The crystal showed the aftermath. Dead worlds orbiting cold stars. Wrecked ships floating in space for thousands of years. And slowly, very slowly, new species growing up in the ruins of the old civilizations. "Your Catherian empire was built on the bones of the real powers in this galaxy," Morrison told the Admiral. "You found their abandoned technology and used it to conquer species that had never seen real weapons of war. For 3,000 years, you've been the strongest force in a galaxy where all the real strength had already destroyed itself." Admiral Zex-High began to understand. "And then you arrived." "And then we arrived," Morrison agreed. "We found evidence of the ancient war before we even left Earth. We studied it. We learned from it. We figured out how to build the old technology. But we also learned why it had been so dangerous." The crystal showed images of human ships under construction. They looked peaceful on the outside, but the images revealed the incredible weapons and defenses hidden inside each vessel. "Every human ship that leaves Earth is ready for war," Morrison explained. "Not because we want to fight, but because we learned what happens to peaceful species in a galaxy with a strong prey on the weak. We hoped we would never meet you, Admiral, but we were ready for it. Admiral HFY stared at the images of human technology. Some of it was based on ancient designs, but much of it was completely new. You improved on the old technology. We had to. The weapons that destroyed the ancient civilizations were too dangerous to use. They could destroy entire star systems by accident. So we built something better, more precise, more controlled, more merciful. Morrison gestured toward the dead. Bridge around them. We could have destroyed your ships and everyone on them, Admiral. It would have been easy, but we chose not to. Do you know why? Admiral HFY thought about it. Because you wanted survivors to carry word back to the Empire. Exactly. We want your people to know what happened here. We want them to understand that the galaxy has changed. The age of the Catherian Empire, ruling through fear and force, is over. Communications Officer Amy Rodriguez contacted the flagship from the Liberty. Captain, we're ready to restore basic life support to the Catherian ship. We can also provide medical assistance if anyone needs it. Morrison looked at Admiral HFY. My people are going to fix your ship's life support systems. We'll give you enough power to contact your homeworlds and enough engine power to get back to Catherian space. But I want you to understand something first. The human captain leaned forward. This doesn't have to be the beginning of a war between our species. We came out here hoping to find friends, not enemies. We're still hoping for that. But if your empire chooses to treat us as enemies, you need to know what you're facing. The crystal showed more images. Human colonies on distant worlds. Factories building ships and weapons. Training centers where human soldiers learn to fight wars in space. And behind it all, the quiet determination of a species that had learned the hard way that peace was only possible when you were strong enough to defend it. We're not the ancient civilizations that destroyed themselves, Morrison said. We learned from their mistakes. We built weapons that can end wars quickly, without destroying everything in the process. And most importantly, we're not trying to conquer anyone. We just want to exist in peace. Admiral HFY felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. You're giving us a choice. The same choice you gave us, Morrison replied. Surrender or be destroyed. Except we're offering you a third option that you never offered anyone else. Coexistence. Your empire can continue to exist, Admiral, but it has to accept that it's not the only power in the galaxy anymore. Amy Rodriguez provided Admiral HFY with a communication device that would let him contact the Catherian High Command directly. The technology was better than anything the Empire had, but the humans were giving it away freely. This will let you send a message across the galaxy. Instantly, Morrison explained. Tell your leaders what you've seen here. Tell them about the ancient war and the technology we've inherited. Tell them that humanity is offering them a choice between cooperation and destruction. Admiral HFY took the communication device. With shaking hands, he knew that the message he sent would determine the fate of his entire civilization. What will you do now? He asked Morrison. The human captain smiled. It was a tired smile, but not an unfriendly one. We'll continue our patrol. We'll keep exploring the galaxy and learning about the species that live here. And we'll hope that next time we meet someone new, we can be friends instead of enemies. As Captain Morrison prepared to leave the Catherian flagship, he turned back to Admiral HFY one more time. Admiral, I want you to remember something. We didn't win this battle because we were stronger or smarter or better than you. We won because we were prepared. We studied. We learned. We got ready. That's what humans do. We survive. The USS Liberty moved away from the disabled Catherian ships, leaving behind repair drones that would restore their basic systems. Soon, Admiral Zexhai would have to send his message to the Empire. The galaxy would learn that everything had changed. In his final log entry, Captain Morrison wrote, "First contact with alien intelligence successful. Diplomatic relations established through superior firepower. Recommend proceeding with Phase 2 of the Deep Space Initiative. The galaxy is full of life, and some of it is hostile, but we're ready for that. We've always been ready for that. Humanity has work to do out here." A message that would reshape galactic politics had been sent. Now everyone would wait to see how the galaxy would respond.